Ontario continues to struggle with an outbreak of measles. Other areas of the country are also dealing with a number of cases, as are some areas of the United States. Our New Brunswick contributor, Wayne MacDonald, is a retired doctor with a background in public health. Wayne, what is the latest on the measles situation?
So measles is caused by a virus, and it's regarded as the most highly infectious communicable disease known to humans. And when you say that, it's so infectious that it's secondary attack rate. In other words, if somebody has measles and they are in an infectious state, they can infect 90% of the people who they come in contact who are not immune to measles. 90%, which is kind of the bar for how infectious a disease can be. The other point about how infectious it is that you can walk into a room where somebody has been who is infected with measles and again infectious. They have left the room 2 hours ago, and up to 2 hours later, you can catch measles because it's still in the air. It's in aerosol, it's in the air, or it's still on tables or things that you can touch that they may have coughed on or the virus has settled. 2 hours after they've left, they're not even in the room for 2 hours, and you can still get it. It doesn't take a lot of the virus to infect you. Others will take a little bit more, but so that's what you're dealing with. That's how infectious this is, and that's why it's a big deal in terms of how quickly it's spreading and why people are concerned about that. I think the other thing too is that when you look at the infections, so what measles basically it'll start with a fever, a tiredness feeling, a stuffed runny nose, a cough, you get some spots inside your mouth, and then about 4 days later, the rash appears. Some people I've talked to thought, well, the first thing is the rash. No, it doesn't appear until about 4 days after all these other symptoms start. And I was in practice back when, seeing a case of measles in a little infant that was, well, probably 10 months old, under one, which is the first, when you get your first measles immunization. And that's a nasty disease on its own without the other part. And these are the complications. That's the other concern about measles, is that a lot of the people who get measles, they'll have otitis media, which is the inner ear infection. They will get pneumonia, and they can develop encephalitis, which is inflammation of the brain, which is obviously a serious thing to have. And if you can survive that, then you often are left with either being blind or deaf or other neurological problems. If you're pregnant and get measles, then you can have miscarriages, low birth weight babies, and premature labor. So these are issues that when you talk about measles, and I know when occasionally I talk to people, they'll say, well, it's just a childhood disease. Well, okay, it is, but it is one that is so highly infectious and has the ability for these complications that's why the medical community gets so concerned when they see that it's entering into their community. Now, Gary, you said Ontario was the hot spot, and that it is that in Canada. The last count I had, and it was updated a week ago, I didn't see today's update, they were over 660 cases. And they started in, I think, November, and it was linked to the outbreak in New Brunswick in the fall, where that produced 50 cases. And members of that, the main group that had the outbreak in New Brunswick, traveled to Ontario and then started spreading it there. And it happens to be amongst a group that have very low immunization rates. So it's just spread. And I think Ontario also had a traveler from outside the country that brought some in as well. But I mean, Quebec's got around 50 cases. Manitoba's got some cases. Saskatchewan's got a small number of cases. BC has a smaller number of cases. But the province now to watch is Alberta. And they're starting to sound alarm bells because they're now up to about 43, 44 cases as of today, whereas 3 weeks ago they had like 12 or 14. And the thing about measles is the incubation period is that is the time from you're exposed to the disease to the time you start to express the symptoms is averages about 10 days. It can go a little longer, like maybe 17 days or even 19 days, but 10 is about the average. So it's not like a cold or a flu where if you're exposed to it and you're going to get it in 2 or 3 days, you've got it. It's 10 days, it's churning along, and you don't know who's going to get it and when. So, and then it's infectious from 4 days before you get the rash to 4 days after the rash begins. So that's about 8 days of being infectious. So you have to consider that too when you're looking at this. And to try and control it, I guess the point I want to emphasize is immunization is the method to control this. The immunization, the MMR, stands for measles, mumps, rubella. It's 3 combined into 1. Been around for years, decades. Safe, well proven. 1 dose gives you about 88 to 90% protection against measles. 2 doses will give you 95 to about 98% protection against measles. I'm not going to say 100 because no vaccine will give 100% protection. There's always a certain small portion of the population that through their immune system or how they respond to it, they either don't get full protection as the bulk of people do. So like that's 90% protection. And why is that important? Because it is so infectious that in order to have herd immunity, which means that you have enough people in your community that they are immunized and they are protected from the disease, so that if the disease enters in that area, that community, that it has nowhere to go. With 95% being immunized and protected against measles, it's just walled off. It'll just fizzle out. So 95%, that's fairly high, and that's the objective country set to try and establish herd immunity against measles.